spongy inside, rounded on the back, sheathed together at the base, appear flattened but oval. The cigar-looking blossom is very densely packed with tiny flowers. Male flowers in the top cluster, female flowers in the bottom cluster. Roots grow horizontally. If there is a gap between the male and female parts of the plant, the T. anguliflora, or the narrow-leaf cattail, if the male and female parts of the plant meet, it's a T. lucifera, or a common cattail. Time of year: spikes, pollen, and flowers in the spring. Bottoms of stalks and roots. Root year best in fall and spring. Environment: grows where it's wet, rivers, ponds, ditches, lakes, close to shore, or farther out. Method of preparation: numerous. Boiled, immature, and mature flowers. Pollen in the bread. Stalks as a trail nibble. Root starch for sustenance. Root stems, shoots as vegetables. The roots can be boiled and the starch stripped or sucked off the fibers. They can be dried. The starch grated off the fibers and the starch used as flour. You can crush the roots in water, let the starch settle, and pour the water off. Then use the starch. Or you can put the roots on embers and roast until black. Then peel the black layer and chew or suck the starch off the fibers. Also, the core of the roots can be roasted until dry and then used as a coffee substitute. So that's the end of his article. There's some comments there that are good, some good information. But just in all, having read that article, it's a great amount of information about the cattail, which is just, it's all over. I don't know that I've ever been anywhere in this country that I haven't seen cattails on the side of the road in a ditch or anything like that. Now, one thing he doesn't mention is that you got to know where you're getting them from. If I'd be leery of a ditch bank right off the side of a road, especially in this time now after a collapse or in a grid down situation where there hadn't been motor vehicles for months and months or years. I don't think it really matters one way or the other at that point, because by that time, any chemicals or pesticides or anything like that have pretty well been washed away. So that's not something I would be too concerned about. Be leery around agriculture because you can have some chemical runoff. Now, having said that, I have tried the cattail stalks by pulling them up and eating the white part. It is actually very delicious eaten raw. And I can't find it, but it was also called Cossack asparagus in Russia. And it was treated like a delicacy where they would take and, I guess, steam or parboil the bottom sections and serve them somehow, maybe with butter or some kind of sauce. So I found that interesting. I cannot, for the life of me, find that article. I've looked around quite a bit. So I have here on the farm just tons and tons of cattail all over the place. So it's something that I've always kept in the back of my mind as a potential supplement to stored foods. So take a look around your immediate area and see what you can find. I'd be more than willing to bet that you'll be able to find a good source of cattail. They're very pervasive, almost invasive, and they're available. So keep that in mind. Go check out eattheweeds.com and just search cattail. That article will pop right up. So that's getting us almost to a point where I've usually been. But what I'm going to do now is really a main topic is I want to talk about a book by a gentleman named Jonathon Hollerman. And Jonathon Hollerman is a former Air Force SEER instructor. And he has a book series. I first introduced to Jonathon Hollerman with a book series called EMP, Equipping Modern Patriots. And I really like the book series. There were some things, personally, I thought the first couple of chapters or the first part of the book, he gave a lot of, I don't take this the wrong way, or I don't mean it like it sounds, but kind of a diatribe where he would just get up and just start talking, and people would listen to him, which I don't know. He was in an office environment, and I don't know that would really happen, but it is a fiction book, so the guy knows what he's talking about, where he's actually taking his personal survival experience and putting them into a book. There are some things in his first book that I disagree with, but again, I'm really a lay person, so I don't have, I don't have much of a leg to stand on. He talks about some firearms and things of that nature that I don't necessarily agree with, but I think he's changed his tune on some of that. I actually sent him a message some years ago kind of busting his chops about that. So on his website, griddownconsulting.com, under his biography, it states, and I quote, "As a former military SEER, survival, evasion, resistance, and escape instructor, and a best-selling author on the preparing and years of emergency preparedness consulting experience, Jonathon Hollerman can provide you with peace of mind that you have made the correct decision and provide safe refuge for your family and relatives should the worst come to pass." Survival Retreat Consultant. Along with his time spent writing, Jonathon has spent years working as an emergency preparedness consultant specializing in survival retreat design and his clients all over the world. He performs on-site survival retreat analysis and designs off-grid infrastructure for families working on a budget up to multi-million-dollar compounds. Jonathon also provides his expertise through phone consultation. In the works, Jonathon has a 2-disc instructional DVD called Survival Bug Out, shot in coordination with the Survival Summit. He is currently in talks with major production studio for hosting a TV show on preparedness, as well as ceaselessly working on the next book. So, again, I really like his outlook on things. I highly recommend taking a look at his website. He's got some very good information there. And I really recommend the book that I'm focusing on tonight is called Survival Theory, A Preparedness Guide. And the subtitle is How to Survive the End of the World on a Budget. On the page for the book on his website, it says, if you're looking for information on how to prepare for a short-term natural disaster, this is not the book for you. Best-selling author Jonathon Hollerman will present evidence that America as we know it could be destroyed in the near future from the loss of America's electric grid or other social collapse scenarios. Many preparedness experts, quote, experts, severely underestimate the threat posed by millions of starving, desperate people. This preparedness guide will help you develop a plan to escape the deadly rioting and looting, show you where you can take your family to keep them safe, even if you can't afford a fully stocked survival retreat. Hollerman's in-depth experience and expertise and recommendations will cover bug-out bags, SHTF weapons, tactical gear, survival tools, knives, long-term food storage, livestock, bug-out locations, survival retreat recommendations, and much, much more. So I'm going to play an excerpt of his book that he has on his site. I would not play it otherwise, but I'm going to play it, and I have asked permission, and if he tells me I can't use it, I will delete this out.
On November 20th, 2014, Admiral Rogers, who is the commander of U.S. Cyber Command, testified before the Congressional Intelligence Committee that America's critical infrastructure, including the electric grid, is completely vulnerable to attack by multiple enemy nations and groups who currently have the knowledge and the ability to literally flip the switch on our electric grid at any time. It is his biggest fear as the commander of U.S. Cyber Command, and he fears a traumatic attack in the very near future, which will result in massive loss of life and property. You can watch his testimony on cspan.org. It will blow your mind that you've never heard of this, or the fact that the media didn't feel it was important enough information to tell the American people. Do you know what the major media story was on November 20th, 2014? The Supreme Court affirming same-sex marriage in South Carolina. You have the man in charge of the U.S. Cyber Command warning Congress about an imminent cyber attack against the U.S. that would result in millions of Americans dying in the aftermath, and the media is more concerned about who is marrying whom in South Carolina. Again, I say it's time to wake up, America. It is up to you to do your own research on these various threats to our way of life because no one else is going to tell you about them. In this guide, I will present the evidence and make the case that our country will experience hard times in your lifetime. I will help you prepare for a societal collapse and show you how to survive after things have fallen apart. What you do with that evidence and information is completely up to you. If you don't heed my advice and prepare now, you will most likely die. Frank Gaffney, the president of the Center for Security Policy, had this to say about America losing the electric grid for an extended period of time after an EMP attack. Quote, "Within a year of that attack, 9 out of 10 Americans would be dead because we can't support a population of the present size in urban centers and the like without electricity." Unquote. Seriously, think about that. Think of 10 people you are close to and try to imagine 9 of them dying of starvation or being murdered over the course of a single year. Please do not be one of the 95% of people unprepared when that day comes. Starving, sick, and huddled in the corner of your house, wondering when the government is going to come and save you. You will discover that no help is on the way, with deadly consequences for you and your family. However, before you make a hasty leap and buy into some monthly long-term food scam thinking you are covered, please educate yourself on what it will really take to make it through a long-term societal collapse scenario. It's a lot more than storing up some food and water in your basement. So if you absolutely knew that there was a very real possibility that hard times would come in your lifetime, wouldn't you prepare for them? If you knew that a flood was coming, would you head to higher ground, or would you put your faith and trust in our government to come and rescue you, like so many did during Hurricane Katrina? If you heard a tornado off in the distance, would you take cover, or continue whatever you were doing? Think of prepping as survival insurance. The reason most people don't prep is because they don't see the need or understand the risk factors. What are the chances that your house will burn down or flood? What are the chances that you will die an early death? These are all very unlikely events, yet you probably have car insurance, medical insurance, life insurance, home insurance, flood insurance, and probably even insurance on some of your more expensive electronics, all to protect yourself against unforeseen tragedies and accidents. Why do you have all these insurance plans? At some point, someone convinced you that it was the responsible and wise thing to do. My main desire would be that my book helps you to see the threat of a societal collapse scenario in our near future and convinces you that putting together a survival insurance plan for you and your family is the responsible thing to do. I am not saying that you need to drain your savings account.